Okay. What's up, everybody? Derek Lambert here, MythVision podcast. Where the hell did hell come from? That's what we're going to be discussing today. I'm actually hanging out with a friend who knows a thing or two about some of these ideas, and that is Victor Engelman. Thank you for joining me, brother.
Hello, Derek. Nice that we finally managed it.
Right. Look, you've been in the chat lingering for a while, dropping super chats. You know, you support me here on Patreon as well. Really great insights that you bring and observations. And, you know, we have been thinking about doing a stream at some point on who knows what, because we both are, you know, avid amateur researchers who love learning. And and you wrote me on WhatsApp, said, dude, I know some stuff about hell, man. And I'm like, okay, well, let's make this the stream then you join me on, because I'll tell you two things. Number one, I was just going to anchor this into how Sheol was not in the Hebrew Bible as hell. Like there was no like afterlife punishment. Tie it into Persia, point out how Persians had a Chinvat bridge and all of that. Lead into Hellenistic afterlives where punishment starts to show up. And then, you know, the typical standard shtick. But as I talked to you within the past, 2 hours, everything changed. And we knew
I told you.
Yeah, so we knew that a lot of people would appreciate this live stream. And of course, if you don't mind, show everybody your shirt there. Let everybody get a sneak peek of the cool outfit you're rocking. Yeah, that's awesome, man. There you go. So anyway, Victor, thank you for joining me again, man.
Yeah, nice to be here. We already talked a lot beforehand, and yeah, we really hit it off. It's like we speak the same language.
Exactly. Good to see everybody in the chat. Hit that like button. Share this bad boy out there with a friend, especially a friend who is afraid of hell, afraid of punishment after they die. Once you really get to look at what appears to be the most likely solution to why humans have come up with these ideas, the fear of that usually, I would say, starts to gradually go away. Once you see very close the monster in the closet, and it's not a monster at all. It's your jacket. It's your shirt hanging up on a coat, you know, on a hanger. You don't, oh, it's not a monster. I thought it was a monster. That's what you start to realize with the teachings of hell, afterlife punishment, and all of that. So I didn't know where we want to begin, Victor, other than to say the idea may go way back. And it might be worth starting with more of the natural why this idea and getting into the region and going from there. So I want to allow you as the guest to go where you think we should start, and then I can pull up visuals to help aid us along the way.
Yeah. So I had just read somewhere that the devil smells like sulfur, and I already had a little bit of a suspicion why that is, but yeah, I wanted to look into the science behind that and see what science has to say. And yeah, then I found, so I asked Google, literally, why does the devil smell like sulfur? And yeah, the first result was this book, why the devil smells like sulfur. And this was really hard to get, I must tell you. And it's also in German, so I found it really important to make the stuff in here known to a wider audience, and that's why I'm here. And I was really worried when we had this huge delay in planning this, and I was thinking, okay, if I have an accident and I die, then I'm gonna haunt you, Derek, because this would be my unfinished business.
Ah, man. Yeah, you really, really wanted hell. And I said, okay, well, let's do it, brother. Let's do it. And so you showed me hell. You said, look, this is a book I have. We started talking just the past 2 hours. So I started pulling out some sources and started realizing, okay, hold on. This video can actually be a lot more complicated than what it really originally was going to be, with simple sources. We know the Jews were in Persia. We know Persian thought of the millennium, the apocalypticism, the idea of hell. All of this absolutely influenced Judeans post Persia, within Persia, especially down into the Common Era. You start to see these ideas. Late Second Temple Judaism and stuff really reflects these ideas from both Persian and Hellenistic thought, where there's a suffering, punishable afterlife. When we go back to the Old Testament, we don't. We have a dreary, dark, shadowy realm of the dead where everyone goes, similar to what you might find in Sumerian afterlife ideas that some people reflect. Then you tell me about this guy who writes this book, and you tell me, well, this guy, he's a geologist, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So he knows about the landscape. And this made me immediately, just so people understand where I'm going with this and why we're going to start here, I think, then work our way into later stories and influence and stuff. And then it reminded me of Robert Cargill, who's an archaeologist, also Bible scholar, but archaeologist and knows the languages, cities that built the Bible. And the entire theme of this book is that geography influenced the myth. The stories that we read in our Bibles are actually often anchored to the geography in which you might find something. So Sodom and Gomorrah just so happens to be a story told right around the Dead Sea. And the Dead Sea does have sulfur, does have, dead, no life in the water, very dry area, but there is water in this extremely dry area. And the story has it raining fire, using water language for a fire that is coming down from heaven. And so a lot of geography seems to be in the myth. So this geologist that you brought up, and feel free to chime in anytime, cut me off, say, this is what I want to say, looked at volcano, a specific volcano in a specific place. I want you to share that with us. As the potential origin roots to the idea of hell and, this underworld cosmic battle, so to speak, between the gods of the sky and the underworld entity we might call today Satan or the devil, even though that's a much later interpretation. Am I on the right track?
Yeah, that's totally right. So this book is very much about a volcano, as the picture already shows, and it's specifically about the volcano Nemrut in eastern Turkey. There's actually
we need to show that.
There's actually 2 Mount Nemruts in Turkey, but we are talking about the one in the east at the shore of Lake Van.
It's this one.
Yeah.
Okay. You want me to go ahead and zoom in, start to let people get an idea here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first things first, ladies and gentlemen, we see Israel, right? We go, well, okay, we see Jerusalem, Israel, ancient, Lebanon, Palestine, all of that you see here, Eastern Mediterranean coast, right? All the way up to Lebanon. This is a modern Google Maps, just to give you an idea, so you have a better idea with modern terminology. But understand that all of this region has been influenced for a long, long time by Mesopotamia, Assyria, Hittites, all of this stuff, right? So up here, there is a mountain range, specifically a volcanic one, right here we're getting to. And this is it. That's a volcano, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
this
the
is
picture,
in
the picture in my background is actually a picture from within that crater.
Okay, let me put you full screen. Okay, that's within the crater of this massive volcanic eruption or volcano that where this eruption happened.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Fascinating. I'm glad you brought that to the front. So we're looking at this really interesting geographic location where this massive volcano, all right, happens to be, and this is in the Caucasus Mountains, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes, and yeah.
So you have this other map right here, right? And you can kind of get an idea. If you look here, zoomed out a little bit, you can see this body of water. If you can see my pointer here, look at this map right here. That body of water is right where my pointer is. There's another location up here that we have the actual coordinates of. And this right here is Mount Ararat. Okay. That's the same mountain that supposedly Noah's flood, the ark lands up here. This Mount Ararat, and the mountain or the volcano you're describing is actually right there.
Yes.
So you're talking right there on the map, that little distance there between where Mount Ararat, according to this ancient mythology of Noah's flood, and the volcano eruption that happened 6,500 BC, which is 8,500 years ago, according to this guy's book, he argues is technically the origin for what we would say modern day hell, the idea of an underworld deity that's, torturing or hurting and harming people or whatever. This would be the root of it all.
Exactly.
Okay. And I got an old map too. I don't know. This is a German old map that I had pulled up just in case we wanted to. But I think the modern Google Maps is better for what we're doing here to give you an idea. And there's the coordinates on screen. If anyone wants to actually go and check out these coordinates for themselves, you can pause this and check them out, do the research. We did the research before we came on here. With that being said, I wish I could do that. Collapse. There we go. That's better. Collapse. All right. Now, this region, where would you like to take us next?
Yeah, you had this AI text about the book.
Oh, yeah. Would you want me to read that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think this eruption is so unique. It maybe not that unique, but it's clearly enough findable in mythology when you have the details. So.
Okay, look, guys, gals, everybody in between, I am going to give you some information here that helps us understand the idea of hell, its origins. The idea of hell's on earth, right? Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq, this is all part of this put together here. But there's a section specifically, the volcano that gave birth to hell. And this section is related to this German book. I could not access this on ebook. The internet was able to provide me an outline of what this guy's argument is and what he's saying about this volcano. And let's hear what he has to say. Why does the devil smell like of sulfur? Okay, now I want you I want to take you somewhere unexpected. We've just looked at the oldest literary descriptions of the underworld, Mesopotamia, Egypt. What if I told you the actual seed of hell, the primal experience that lodged the idea of destructive fire from below the earth into the human imagination might go back even further, not to any text, but to a real geological catastrophe witnessed by some of the earliest settled communities on earth. There's a fascinating and provocative book by two German researchers. The title translates to Why the Devil Smells of Sulfur, the Volcanic Homeland of Hell. The German title is, and I'm not going to butcher this. Thank you. And their thesis is one of those ideas that once you hear it, you can't unhear it. They argue that the concept of hell, the fire, the sulfur, the underground demons, the monstrous rebel cast down into a pit, All of it traces back to a specific volcanic eruption in eastern Anatolia roughly 8,500 years ago. Let me walk you through this because the argument is compelling. The eruption of Mount Nemrut, about 8,500 years ago, so roughly 6,500 BCE, a volcano called Nemrut erupted on the western shore of Lake Van, the great inland sea in what is now eastern Turkey. This is not the famous Nimrut Dağ with the giant stone heads. That's a different mountain further west. This is Nimrut Volkanisi, a massive stratovolcano that sits right on the edge of one of the largest lakes in the Middle East. Now, here's what makes this location so significant. This region of eastern Anatolia, the area around Lake Van, stretching into northern Mesopotamia, is one of the cradles of human civilization. This is where some of the very first sedentary farming cultures were developing. Göbekli Tepe, the oldest known monumental site on Earth, is in the same broad region, and I'm going to butcher this, but Catalayuk is not far. The Fertile Crescent begins here. These were communities that had only recently transitioned from nomadic hunting and gathering to settled agricultural life. They were building the first permanent villages. They were domesticating animals and grain. They were, in a sense, the first version of us, and they had never seen anything like what was about to happen, what they saw. Imagine you are a Neolithic farmer in the Lake Van Basin around 6,500 BCE. You have no concept of plate tectonics, no understanding of magma chambers, no framework for volcanic activity. The earth beneath your feet is the solid foundation of reality. The mountain across the lake is a permanent, unchanging feature of your world. Then one day, the mountain explodes. The authors describe what the survivors would have experienced in terrifying detail. First, the ground shakes. Then the mountain begins belching enormous columns of smoke and ash into the sky, blotting out the sun. Darkness falls in the middle of day. Then comes the sulfur, choking, toxic rain carrying the stench of rotten eggs falling from the sky. And then the lava, rivers of flowing molten rock pouring down the mountainside, incinerating everything in their path. The earth itself is on fire. The mountain that was once a stable...
Can I interrupt you here?
Yeah.
One short thought. That's also something they say in the book. They connect this lava flowing down a mountain with fire snakes and dragons and dragons and which is stuff that you find in mythology, right? Burning snakes.
It makes sense. I mean, we go back into the mythology. You see lakes, rivers, water naturally, liquids would naturally carve out kind of a serpentine shape. That's interesting. So, maybe the concept of serpent and these ideas could be relatable. The mountain that was once a stable part of your landscape is now a furnace, a nightmare of flame and poison gas and roaring, thundering destruction. But there's one image in particular that the authors argue burned itself indelibly into the memory of the survivors. During the eruption, a massive column of lava, rock, and fire built up at the summit of the mountain. To the terrified people watching from the shores of Lake Van and the surrounding plains, this looked like a colossal figure, a monstrous being rising from inside the earth. A rebel, something from below, was breaking out, challenging the sky, growing to enormous proportions at the peak of the mountain. And then, and this is the crucial moment, this rebel suddenly vanished. It collapsed back into the mountain. The summit crater swallowed it. The monstrous figure that had risen from the earth was sucked back down into the fiery abyss. Hundreds of people witnessed this from a distance, and they never forgot it. So from natural catastrophe to supernatural story. Think about how these Neolithic people who would have interpreted what they saw, they had no science, they had mythology, they had gods, they had what they witnessed, and what they witnessed looked for all the world like a rebellion, evil forces under the earth, demonic powers rising up against the gods of the sky, the gods they had always worshipped. The earth itself had been torn open, revealing a terrifying underworld of fire, choking fumes and destruction. The authors argue that this is where the foundational template was formed. From the single catastrophic event, the survivors created a mythological narrative. There are evil forces beneath the earth. They dwell in fire and sulfur. They once rebelled against the gods and were cast back down into the pit. The underworld is a place of punishment, of flames, of choking stench, and the rebel who tried to rise up was defeated and swallowed by the abyss. If that story sounds familiar, it should. It is structurally the story of Satan. A rebel who rose up against God was defeated and was cast into a fiery pit. It is the story of the fallen angels. It is the story of Lucifer, the morning star who tried to ascend to the heavens and was hurled down. It is the story of the Titans cast into Tartarus. It is the authors argue, the myth that would eventually become hell itself.
Yeah.
The transmission.
I think we can stop there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's already a pretty awesome story, right? I mean,
Right.
this is, I think, 2 kilometers in diameter here, this volcano. So imagine like a 2-kilometer diameter column rising up to the sky, right? And they say it's more than 1,000 meters high. So
Wow.
it's going really over the clouds, right? And
Right.
and then it crashes down and disappears. And so the text then also says, okay, how do we get this information now, right? Because 6,500 BCE, writing wasn't even invented, right? So how do we get a story about that? I mean, geologists look at the remains and indicators there and can find out, okay, this is what happened. But right at the shore of Lake Van, you had the Hurrians.
I should show the map for people to get an idea, at least what the region that the Hurrians encompassed, just so they have an idea. So here we are, back to this. That's something we can bring up here shortly. It's this map here, just to give you an idea of the Hurrian kingdom up here, and you have the lake right up here where the Hurrian kingdom is located. Now this is 2300 BCE, so pretty ancient. But either way, I just figured I'd show you that map.
Yeah. So the thing is, around that same time, 6,500 BCE, people started spreading from the Caucasus all over the world. So that's called Neolithic expansion. And I'm specifically talking about the Anatolia hypothesis. And that explains why we have this similarity in the different mythologies of Romans, Greeks, North mythology, ancient Near East, right? They just went everywhere from there.
Interesting. Yeah, look, roughly the map does. Okay, no, this is really old back here in the red. The red's the oldest. So you can see this map, right? Or is it coming in kind of fuzzy? You kind of see it, right?
I have it quite small because I'm on StreamYard.
Oh, okay. So, but either way, you can see the red in the bottom right is like the oldest region before the expansion you're talking about.
Yeah, and so the Hurrians, at least partially, migrated to a region that is believed to be Shinar. From I think it's Genesis 11.
Right. I have heard. I don't know about the name Hurrian in the Bible, but is it? Do they call them the Hurrians?
The Bible mentions the Hurrians at some points, but they call them Horites.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, here's another image depicting this migration. It's very simple, but it shows you over here on the right where you could see 10,000, and then all the moving. There's a lot of relocating. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, but the important part is that the Hurrians lived really at this volcano when it erupted, and then we have in Hurrian mythology this song of Ulikumi, right? You've talked about that with John White before. I know that, I've seen that.
We have that prepared to read when you want. Again, just showing you a map gives you kind of an idea of the Caucasus, mountains. This, by the way, this region up here in the north, this area is exactly where Gog and Magog. There's Alexander the Great supposedly builds a wall separating the Scythians from the north, coming down into the south. And Josephus talks about this. The Quran still indicates that this is apocalyptic, and that these mountain regions in the top, where there's this iron gate built by Alexander the Great, which was really built by Duo-Karnine, according to the Quran, which is Alexander the Great, the two-horned one. That's the same region. Like, all of this is so interesting that even in southern Arabia, or even in Arabia, these stories are significant, right? We get this in the Bible, likely due to its spread through Babylon when the Jews went through Babylon and stuff. But Ararat is the region. There's the lake. You've got all sorts of cool stuff there. I just figured I'd show that. We'll get to KTU. Here is what we put together. So can you tell us what we're about to read with the Song of Ulikumi, the exploits of Ninurta? And we put this together, but it's not the whole Song of Ulikumi or the whole exploits of Ninurta. You chose certain passages for what reason?
Well, mainly what fits with the eruption, but that's really a lot. So I think all the important plot points are there.
Okay, we will read that. That's a reconstructed image to show you the Song of Ulikumi from the Hittites, just to show you what it looks like. All right. So do we want to go ahead and read, Victor, or...
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when was the Song of Ulikumi written? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but since it's so similar to the eruption, I think it must at least have been oral tradition since
that goes back
6,500 BCE.
Wow. Okay, let's hear it. The Song of Ulikumi. Tablet A, column 1, 5 through 8. I guess I will read this, and then you just feel free to interrupt at any time to fill me in on additional details, or to help give a little commentary on what you are seeing and how that relates to the point. So, Kumarbi against the storm god Teshub, a rebel he raises. And in Ikunta Luli, a great rock lies. And with the rock he slept, and into her his manhood flowed.
Okay, I have to interrupt you here already. I sent you a link.
Okay.
In StreamYard.
Is it this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Scroll a bit down. Further down, the paragraph 2 is what I want to translate for you.
Okay.
So, paragraph 2, a bit up. I mean, I could. Yeah, that. Okay. So this is not, at least according to this website, not exactly part of the Song of Ulikumi, but it is believed to be part of Ulikumi, and I think it fits so well in there. I'm pretty sure it is part of the Song of Ulikumi. So it says here, the mountain Washita went into labor. The labor Kumarbi heard. The mountain Washita went into labor. And all mountains went to him. Strangely, I think it should be her, but all mountains went to him to see what's up. All the mountains began to speak to Mount Washita. Mount Washita, why are you in labor? From your youth, you don't know labor. The destiny goddesses didn't ascribe it to you. The mother didn't create it for you. Mount Washita began to answer the mountains. From youth on, I don't know labor. The Destiny Mountains didn't ascribe it to me. My mother didn't create it for me.
Huh. So
Okay.
I'm gonna do what I'm gonna let, just so that we can get like what Mac has. Mac says this, right? So I did a little, and this is usually never really precise, but it just gives you the idea, right, of a English translation. But you're reading directly from the German and no English too, so you're giving more of the context here. That's really interesting. Um,
I
this
think,
is an eruption, right? You're saying this is an eruption of that mountain.
yes, right. So, but one thing I really want to point out here is that Mount Washita is a virgin, right? She's even a perpetual virgin. Her destiny, her entry on the table of on the tablet of destinies, says she should never have sex in her entire life. She was supposed to be a virgin forever, and I think that later connects actually to Virgin Mary somehow. But
Interesting.
yeah,
Like the
but,
concept of, huh?
yeah, let's continue with the Song of Ulikumi.
Okay. Okay, so here we are, and this makes me think of Mithras as well, with
Yes.
gods born from rocks and stuff like that. Kumarbi, to his own mind, began to speak. What name shall I put on him? Out of the body like a blade he sprang. He shall go. Ulikumi be his name. Up to heaven, to kingship he shall go. And Kumaya, the dear town, he shall press down, but the storm god he shall hit. All the gods down from heaven like birds he shall scatter. And Kumarbi, to the Ursiris, midwife goddesses, began to speak. This child take, and to the dark earth underworld carry him, and on Upaluri's right shoulder as a blade put him. But his body of stone, of Kunkanuzi diorite, was made. He grew up, the Kukanuzi diorite. In one day, 1 yard he grew, but in 1 month, 1 furlong he grew. When the 15th day came, the stone had grown high. Out of the water he stood, the stone and the sea up. To the place of the belt like a garment reached, and up in heaven the temples and the chamber he reached. The sun god alerts Teshub. Ishtar attempts to seduce Ulikumi. The sun god sees the stone against rising from the sea and alerts Teshub, the weather god. Ishtar then tries to seduce Ulikumi but fails, for he is deaf and hears not. In his eyes he is blind and sees not, and mercy he has not. Go away, O Ishtar. The assault on Ulikumi, Ea's ancient weapon. 70 gods. I think that blue's kind of distracting on some of the text, so I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to read. 70 gods took him on, but still was not able. And Ashtabi and the 70 gods down into the sea fell. The Kunkanuzi diorite his body, and heaven he shook. And the Kunkanuzi down on earth stood. He was lifted, the Kunkanuzi, and the chamber and the temple he reached. His height was 9,000 leagues. Teshub's wife, Hebet, is trapped in a tower. Much of the tablet is broken. Teshub probably attacks Ulikumi but fails. Tashmishu, to the storm god, again began to speak. O storm god, my lord, my words hear. Come, let us go to Apsua before Ea. When Ea the words ceased to speak, to Upaluri he went, and there the Kukanuzi on Upaluri's right shoulder like a blade stood. Ea and the former gods again began to speak. My words hear, O former gods, who the former words know, again open them, the old storehouses. The former saw they shall bring out, with which heaven and earth they cut apart. And as for Ulikumi, the Kunkanuzi under his feet we shall saw. Ea to Tashmishu again began to speak. Now go ye and fight him again. And the storm god, the brave king of Kumia, heard it. And to the assembly place they came. The storm god upon his cart sprang, and with thunder down to the sea he went. And he fought him. The storm god fought the Kunkanuzi. The remainder is nearly completely broken. The Kunkanuzi completely destroyed. You want to give us a recap, or at least?
Yeah. So we have a mountain giving birth to a stone demon that is a diorite, so it's black. So it looks like volcanic stones. It comes from the underworld, right? So it grows to the heaven and attacks the kingdom of heaven. Then his feet are cut off and he falls back into the underworld. So if this is totally similar, if you ask me, to this eruption where you have this column rising to the heaven, and so then we have that the people then thought that this crater right behind me would be the entrance to the underworld, right?
And then he gets defeated in the end. The demon diorite gets defeated, right, and sent back down into the underworld.
Yeah, and it's totally interesting that the Sumerian word Kur, which means mountain, also means underworld.
Interesting.
And I think this is the reason why.
So I had ChatGPT, just for the hell of it, create an image depiction of kind of, an anthropomorphized natural disaster where they would have thought a demon was coming out, being birthed by the mountain, a volcanic eruption, and then of course is now going back down when the sky gods and whatnot try to subdue, or Ishtar may have tried to seduce or whatever. This now goes back down into the volcano, and I think that's kind of cool just to get a depiction here because it's right near the lake and all of that. But the other thing I wanted to say is, these people here, these geologists, they believe they have actual evidence, and I think they also cover that in this book. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's an article, but yeah.
It's an article. Okay, sorry. So this is the volcanic ancestral home of ancient Anatolian succession and stone birth myths that is related to this mountain, which is a volcano. And they think that they, as geologists, have figured out a massive, if you will, stone pillar structure, so to speak, went back down into the mountain after erupting.
And that picture that you just showed, that you generated, that reminds me a lot of Thor 3, Ragnarok. Have you seen that? Right,
the game?
No, the film, the Marvel film. Ah,
okay.
Yeah, in the end,
no, I haven't.
At the beginning of that movie, Thor talks to this fire demon inside a volcano, and he's called Surtur. And at the end of the movie, Surtur really comes out of the volcano, and he's a fire giant. And Surtur is really the Norse version of Uli Kumi.
Wow.
I find that super cool that we basically have Uli Kumi in a Marvel movie.
Yeah, we're still doing a modern mythology based on the OGs here, the old school, myths of old. Then you told me we needed to look at the exploits of Ninurta. Do we want to move forward into that?
Let me look at my notes. Yeah, you already mentioned that the Hebrew word Satan means opposer, and that Uli Kumi is explicitly called rebel and rival. He does a rebellion against the gods. Also, he throws down 70 gods from heaven, right? I think that's at least in my imagination, that looks like the battle between Satan and God, and some of the angels are falling, right?
Interesting. So the myth of the fallen angels being the chief among them being the devil, or Satan, as Christians understand it, is just a modern spin of this old 70 gods that fall by the high God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So before we continue with the Ninurta, I'm gonna send you another link.
Okay.
I want you to show that to the people.
I'm down. Okay. So you sent me 2 additional links. Did you want me to bring up the Samara culture or just go
No,
with the
that's not
Assyrian?
so. Samara culture is not so interesting.
Okay.
It's just some stuff that was found in Shinar and possibly was Hurrian.
Okay. So what I just got is a search entry. You want me to just pull that up?
Yeah, show that on screen,
Okay.
please.
All right. So this is what it showed me. This is it.
Okay, select English.
English. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
So I've read most of the Bible, and I noticed that there's only one place where God is described as a bush or a burning bush, right?
Mhm.
And that I found that weird. And I thought, a lot of stuff seems to come from the time of the Babylonian exile, right? And let's say this part of the Bible also comes from that time. So they took that maybe from some Babylonian text. Then the bush might be a translation error. So let's look here for the word bush. And let's see what the word might have meant actually. The second to last entry.
This here?
Yes.
Okay.
Read that out loud.
So you have a zikpu, a sapling, a shoot, a bush, a seedling, a pole, a blade, a peak, ubanu, a perpendicular, and then of course it goes to
so
here for bush.
Don't you realize what you've just read?
Huh.
Moses seeing a burning bush on a mountain could actually be a translation error from Moses seeing a burning pole on a mountain.
So you're thinking that this might be that the Moses story might be this volcanic eruption, so to speak.
Yeah, that it's at least connected, I think.
Narrative wise, that it might be related to this old Ulikumi ancient Anatolian volcanic eruption mythology that you think might be. It's interesting you bring that up because when I did a documentary, you probably watched it a while back, where I brought up the work of Nisam Amzalog, and he talks about metallurgy and why there's so much fire and melting of metals and stuff like that, that there was a lot of metallurgy down here near the region of Kantilit Adrud, northwest Arabia. But I did bring up volcanoes in the Sea People regions of the Aegean during that documentary. And I just thought to myself, if there's this like really trade routes and connections going on, who's to say this story isn't potentially taking and mixing in some of the stuff you're talking about here? So if it wasn't a burning bush, but it was a burning mountain, let's say, that had, some kind of rock or, I don't know, you said a pole sort of thing coming out. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know.
I mean, a burning pole would fit better with the later story when God guides the Hebrews through the desert, right? There he moves in form of a burning column, right?
Interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, there's the pillar of fire that you're talking about, that we think of it as like a whirlwind or something, but it's like a pillar of fire that's traveling. Yeah, that's interesting. It's not definitive, but it's interesting. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
I mean, I have no evidence that somebody wrote a text about a burning sikpu on a mountain, right?
Yeah.
On a kur in Babylonia, right? But I find it really interesting that the word bush is the same word like as pole in Babylonian.
I'm gonna hold that one in the back of my head. I've got some Syriologists that know Hebrew as well, and just get their thoughts and say, hey, what do you think of this? I'd like to hear what they have to say. Yeah.
You think of Joshua Bowen?
Yeah, Joshua Bowen is one of them.
Yeah.
And see what he thinks and go from there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If he's in the audience, maybe he can correct
I
me if I'm wrong.
Well, he'd probably want to go look it up. I know how he is. He'd rather go check and double check and triple check and look at the sources and the etymology and like all that kind of stuff. So he'll take his time, but I haven't seen him appear at all in the chat. So I would have to, write him and ask him.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll send him this live stream and say, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think there's something maybe to it? Mind you, there's a lot you're already bringing. Like if we look at this, we're bringing baggage to this that, you're already reading the scholars that are talking about the geology. You're already making mythic connections about this origin of a volcanic eruption for hell. So like all that background knowledge, he may not be carrying that knowledge while he's thinking about these things like you and I are. You see what I'm saying? So I'd have to like give him a little bit like, what do you think about this idea? And then pitch it to him. But he would probably go, well, are there any other scholars out there who also think this? You know what I mean? Because he wouldn't want to be the Lone Ranger probably.
Okay, so let's continue with Ninurta.
Okay, we're going to the exploits of Ninurta next.
And before we start, many scholars say that the name Ninurta might be connected to King Nimrod from Genesis.
I have heard that. Or at least Nimrod might be a later, reaching back to this Ninurta. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of that. That's interesting. I don't know the languages to be able to be so certain. This is late 3rd, early 2nd millennium BCE. So it's pretty old. Pretty freaking old. We're talking about 2000 plus BCE. I mean, that goes way back. So, okay, here we go. And we're reading the lines. Mind you, this is not the whole thing. So if you want to go read the whole thing, go for it. This is relevant to what Victor's wanting to show us. Lord of lofty station, foremost one, who presides over all lords from the throne dais. Ninurta, whose orders are unalterable, whose decisions are faithfully executed, my master. Heaven copulated with verdant earth, Ninurta. She has borne him a warrior who knows no fear, the Asag, a murderer from the mountains. Oh, well, that's kind of a big deal. A youth who has come forth from. It has sired offspring in the mountains and spread its seeds far and wide. The Ku, the Sajkal, the Essi, diorite, the Usium, the Kagina, hematite, and the heroic new stones. Its warriors constantly come raiding the cities. For them, a shark's tooth has grown up in the mountains. It has stripped the trees. My master, this same creature, has erected a throne dais. Interesting. The fact that the trees stripped the trees, I could, any trees located near a volcanic eruption, gone. They are totally gone. I'll continue. Unless there's something else you want to add to what we just read.
No, it's continue.
And there's various stones. I think that's interesting too. The various stones.
Yeah. One of them being diorite.
Yes, exactly. Essi, diorite. Okay. The Lord rose, touching the sky. Ninurta went to battle. Which one step he covered a league. He was in alarming storm and rode on the 8 winds towards the rebel lands. An enormous hurricane, irresistible, went before the hero. It caused a rain of coals and flaming fires. The fire consumed men. It overturned tall trees by their trunks. The people there did not know where to turn. They bumped into the walls. Darkness. It reduced the animals of the open country to firewood, roasting them like locusts. Damn. I don't even know if you need to explain what just happened. I think everybody knows what just happened with that one. Did you feel like commenting on anything there?
Yeah, one thing, it says that a shark tooth grows in the mountain, right? It's again something vaguely cylindrical, right? growing in the mountains and connected to fire and darkness and stuff.
So what if hell and all the fear we've had, the restless nights worrying about where we're going after we die, were simply a natural disaster? Now, I don't want to downplay it and just go simply. To the people who experienced this, this was hell on earth. This was the worst possible thing that could ever have happened to them. But mind you, this was temporary, and it was something that mythologies came from, and it all just comes back to the boogeyman that you find in your closet is actually just your coat hanging up on a hanger. I'm not trying to downplay the original, obviously, situation, but it's like we've made much more out of a natural disaster with the mythology of hell than what hell actually is. So, all right. The Asag's fury. The Asag tore the flesh of the earth and covered her with painful wounds. It set fire to the reed beds, bathed the sky in blood, turned it inside out. You could see it like it set fire, right? So that's the painful wounds, like scabs of the earth from the fire, you know what I mean? From the volcano. Enlil has said, Ninurta, let him take the Asag by the shoulder, let him pierce its liver. Ninurta, the Asag, has constructed a wall of stakes on an earthen rampart. The fortress is too high and cannot be reached. Its fierceness does not diminish. Shar-ur warns, do not on any account meddle with the hurricane of the mountains. Ninurta, Lord, son of Enlil, it is a blister whose smell is foul. There's the egg, the stench of the egg, kind of rotten egg smell. Like mucus, which comes from the nose, it is unpleasant. Lord, its words are devious. It will not obey you. My master, it has been created against you as a god. It causes a downpour of potsherds. Lord, turn away. But the Lord howled at the mountain. He reversed the evil that it had done. He smashed the heads of all the enemies. He made the mountains weep. Like a bird of prey, the Asag looked up angrily from the mountains. Ninurta approached the enemy and flattened him like a wave. The Asag's terrifying splendor was contained. He scattered it into the mountains. He pounded the Asag like roasted barley. Its genitals, he piled it up like a heap of broken bricks. Lord, beside you there is no one else, nor can anyone stand like you, nor is anyone born like you. Ninurta, from today, no one in the mountains will rise against you. From today forward, do not say Asag. Its name shall be Zalag Stone. This, its entrails, shall be the underworld. At that time, the good water coming forth from the earth did not pour down over the fields. The Tigris did not bring up its floods in its fullness. Its mouth did not finish in the sea. It did not carry fresh water. That's how bad this volcano was. The fall and rising, dying and rising.
That's not really part of the text. That was a note I put in there for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so pretty clearly describing a volcanic eruption, don't you think?
I think that's obvious. I think that there's no way you can't see a mountain erupting as something significant in those stories. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, we have something rising up in the mountains, a volcanic eruption. And it's also interesting in my mind that Asag was created by heaven and earth copulating, right? Also interesting, the text always says he goes to the rebel lands, right? Again, rebel. So Ulikumi was called a rebel. Satan is an opposer, right?
Yeah.
So
you could see that myth. You see it.
Yeah, and also when Ninurta kills Asag, its entrails become the underworld.
Right.
Right. So stone. He says he becomes bricks, and he's called stone. And so, yeah, the underworld again is the result, or connected at least to to a volcanic eruption where something rose in the mountains, right?
Yeah.
Also, and another detail here, it says that River Tigris ran dry, right?
Yes. Yes.
Lake Van, next to Mount Emrut, actually feeds Tigris River.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so let's
the
pull the
lake
map
has,
back up.
feeds two rivers, and one of them is Tigris.
So if we zoom out just to show people kind of an idea of you can see that this river, the black line here, goes all the way to the sea. And then here's Lake Van. And you're saying that this would feed into this river here to the east.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's still the case today, but I've definitely read that.
Yeah, I'm trying to see.
I think it's even in that paper, in that article by
in this one here?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. I would definitely take a geologist, at least consider what they're saying, especially when it comes to the geography here. But yeah, so I mean, this is a modern map, and we're talking 6,000 to 8,000 years ago. So I can't imagine a large body of water not playing some significance. Interesting. Yeah, man, this is cool. I like stuff like this. This may be where even the Titans, right? We talk about the Greek myths with the Olympians, but prior to that, the Titans are
they are on the next page of my notes.
Let's do it.
Would you do us the honor and read us Exodus 19, verse 18?
Exodus 19, verse 18?
Yeah.
So I keep hearing bad things about the NIV, so I'm going to try and get a better version, see NRSV or something. Let's just do this one. Okay. All right, sharing screen. Get rid of the ads. All right. 19 verse what?
18.
18. Okay. Then Moses led the people out of the camp to meet with God. They stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. The smoke billowed up from it like smoke from a furnace, and the whole mountain trembled violently. As the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and the voice of God answered him.
Yeah, tell me that's not a volcano.
That is. But here's the interesting part about that. I remember doing this script, and the reason why I even brought up earlier, now I'm recalling the mountain that erupted in the Aegean, and that mountain is massive. It's right there on the island of let's pull up the Google Maps so I can show you. So we come out here, we zoom out, right? Supposedly this story from Egypt is happening down here, okay? Crossing this Sinai region here where we see North Sinai, South Sinai, Contilla Druids over here. So right here, where the Gulf of the Aqaba, right here, somewhere in this region, there is, and it might be Timna Park, but there is a lot of metallurgy from the ancient world. We're talking metallurgy that went back 5,000 BCE. We're very ancient, like metals and stones from the earth that they're getting metals from, right? So trade routes. But here's what really, really blew me away is this metallurgical language, this volcanic language you're talking about, which is in the same setting of the story supposedly happening in this region. Guess what's not in any of this location here? Any of this area? Volcanoes. There are no volcanoes. So I kind of wondered, why is the geography missing a volcano when the description supposedly of this event? Well, it's a myth. It's a story. But where are they drawing the motif from? And so I wondered, just threw it out there. I did not say this is the case, but I wondered if you go out here to the volcano on this island here, the island of Crete, would you see, the volcano that erupted here was massive. I believe it's Volcano Crete. Let me make sure my
I don't think it was Crete.
Let me get English here.
It's that island with the white houses and the blue roofs.
One of these islands around here, dude. Naxos. Not sure if it's Naxos. I thought it was Crete, but
Oro,
it was
I think. A bit,
it's what ended the Minoan
I
civilization.
think there it was Oro. Hey, Oro is a city
Let me
there,
ask.
but
Let me ask. See what volcano? It was massive. Eruption ended the Minoan civilization. Now, mind you, there were still people who survived it from different regions, but the overall Minoan civilization ultimately had east. And then you had the Mycenaeans, right, who ultimately took over. The eruption that devastated and effectively ended the Minoan civilization was the eruption of the volcano on the island of Thera. Santorini. Yep.
Yeah.
So, they debate the exact date, but the eruption occurred sometime between 1600 and 1500 BCE. Radiocarbon evidence leans towards. So I thought, man, this language that supposedly, where is Santorini? I don't even know where it is.
They're quite in the middle of, a bit below the middle of the screen. Yeah, no. Right over Crete. Now it's gone.
Did I pass it?
Yeah, it's pretty exactly in the middle now, where it says.
Okay. I don't see the word.
There.
Huh. Anyway, I don't even see
it.
Yeah, I didn't even see it, but I could do that on Google Maps. But either way, it's in this region. It was so big, it was so bad. But then there was a volcano up here too, right? And it was really right here, specifically right here. And this was a massive one, like you said, where all these civilizations were really rooted in prior to anything that happened 1500 years ago. This one goes way back. And in fact, to the Santorini, it can't be the volcano specifically from the Santorini one that influenced the Kumarbi one, because this Kumarbi / Ulukimi story from the Hittites, this predates. This is at least 2,000-3,000 year old myth written in stone, which predates any time a volcano could have erupted here. Now, is it possible that the volcano eruption here influenced the one down here? I guess. But volcano eruption still would give you the imagery you just described of Exodus right here. So either volcano, maybe they have this in mind now. When a volcano erupts, the same myth gets kind of, you know.
I've heard someone looking at the Santorini eruption, and they said that it would be too far away. You wouldn't have seen it. You might have seen a bit of a glow at the horizon, but not the eruption itself. I think it might be more connected to an eruption of Arad Rahat. That's a whole field of volcanoes in southern Arabia.
Now that's a possibility.
Around Medina. And that's one of the reasons why I think that Medina is Median.
Interesting. But that's pretty far south too, though. So I mean, it's closer than the Santorini, of course.
Well, you know, there's the trade route on the southern border, and traders who traveled there would have come by that eruption. That field erupted 2,500 BCE.
This one, the Medina one?
Yeah, I personally think that this might even have kickstarted religions as we have them today, because maybe people said, like, our ancestors tell us this nonsense story about gods, and then suddenly they have a giant volcanic eruption here in Medina, and then they say, holy shit, our ancestors were right.
It's kind of funny. Like I was explaining to you before we went live, how, I think that humans were looking at natural disasters, natural phenomena, and then just interpreting them as agents, divinities, spirits, whatever. And but even today, with my rational mind saying, I don't buy this, I don't believe that's a god or whatever, I'll walk outside in a thunderstorm and got to get something out of the mailbox or get something out of the car, and then a thunderclap. And it's so loud and it's so intense that my gut just goes, like I freak out thinking, I can't help but like immediately feel like I'm cowering down to something mighty, something way beyond me. Now, of course, the ancients would have easily made that connection and thought, oh, that's a divine, that's a god, that's a being. But like if we were near a volcano, my whole world, I would think, is literally ending. And I think that that's important in understanding a natural phenomenon like that for these people.
Especially when you have no idea what a volcano even is, right? There hasn't been a volcanic eruption for 10,000 years before that one, in at least a distance of 1,500 kilometers. So these people really didn't know what volcanoes are, right? Imagine that you just live somewhere and suddenly your town becomes fire, right? It starts melting or something.
Jeez, that's crazy. Okay.
The floor is lava.
Yeah. So you're showing biblical examples where even the Mount Sinai, depicts this. And there are other ones in the Bible. There are other examples you could look to.
Dozens. I've collected, I think, over 60, 70 Bible verses where you have people worshiping God by lighting a fire on top of a mountain, for example, and where God's anger is expressed by raining fire. So
interesting.
I think it's pretty solid that at least the older parts of the Bible still have some idea of God being a volcano.
Or related to it somehow, right?
Yeah, we haven't gone through everything that I want to tell you. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Take me into the next
I was getting ahead of myself by already saying that God is a volcano.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's look at a few other things, just short ones. You've discussed Marduk's ordeal, right, in your show, and there you had the story that Marduk was imprisoned inside a volcano.
In a mountain, yeah. You want me to pull that text up?
Well, not necessarily, but I just wanted to bring it up that there you also have a big, important god in a volcano, right?
Yeah, it might just be worth showing it's in the very beginning of it. That Bel, which is Marduk, Bel Marduk, was confined in the mountain. So he becomes imprisoned inside the mountain, which is interesting. And of course, then there's Sin and Shamash, give life to Bel. Bel's trapped. Bel Marduk's trapped inside of a mountain. But yeah.
And they are looking for him at the graveyard, but they don't find him, although he was guarded. Also sounds a bit like another story that we know, right?
I know. Yeah. I made this kind of connection in a video once where I said it looks like this story has a lot in common with Jesus. And, it's just 700 years before Jesus that we're reading this text. I'm like, come on. So anyway.
Okay. Then we have Mithra, right? He is born with a light on Mount Hara-Bere-Zaiti, and he emerges from a rock and flames shoot from the rock. So
I'll share this to give people. We got Mithras, of course. This is the later Roman depiction. Let's look at this here. This looks older. Relief from Iran. In this relief, Ardashir the second is in the middle, and to his right is Shapur the second, and to the left, King, the god Mithra. So you got the god Mithra here on the left. Just showing people some visuals, What's this? This is Mithra Temple. underground rock cut sanctuary in Iran. That's interesting. So they want to be inside the mountain, right? Inside the temple. Hellenistic depiction. Well, hold on, the right. Something's going on the right here. Apollo-like god, which is thought to be Mithra. Huh. So on the right, that's supposed to be Mithra. And this is a Hellenistic coin depicting a Parthian king, it seems, kneeling before an Apollo-like god, Mithra, on the right. Fascinating. Mithras Helios, right? The solar rays in an Iranian dress. Mithra, another one. And of course, we know the Roman Mithraism. Anyway, I just figured I'd show people. All right. And he was born of a rock. Now, I didn't know about the fire coming out at his birth thing. I didn't know about that. But do we know what source that's from?
I've read that on Wikipedia, I think.
Okay. Etymology. In the
maybe Avesta. I think it was describing a painting of the birth. So maybe that's not in the literature.
No, let me ask and see. I know he's born of a rock. Mithra, the Iranian god, was born of a rock, but was fire there at his birth. If so, what sources or what primary sources? Okay. So let's just see if it does anything. Yes, in several ancient Iranian sources, Mithras' birth from a rock is explicitly accompanied by light, fire, or a radiant flame. So that makes sense, especially when we go back to Persian, the Persian Zoroastrian, the eternal fire, and they worship the fire, the flame, right? That's central to their religion. That makes a lot of sense, actually. And in fact,
I just sent you a picture, a depiction of Mithras' birth.
Okay, nice, even better. Okay, we're going to show that. But also, I want to mention I did a recent interview with Gad Barnea. Did you watch that one where he connects the burning bush to Mithra, to Zoroastrian worship of the fire? And that's why Moses has to get barefoot before he approaches the flame. In Persian art, they take their sandals off. The priests take their sandals off before they approach the fire. But so this is interesting, artistic. But I think this seems like a more modern, symbolic kind of rendition. I feel like even better would be to get the Persian fire worship, ancient. Let's do that. And it gives you the, kind of this. Here's a example, right, of the fire and a pillar. So this all potentially seems to relate to the idea of fire from a mountain, from a rock, right?
Yeah.
It's really cool just seeing the pictures. Okay. Following you. I'm just throwing images for people as we go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you also talked about Prometheus, who was crucified, right? And he was actually nailed to a mountain in the Caucasus.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, that's also, I think, interesting that this story also connects to that region, right? So
yeah. So here's
it's a punishment for bringing fire to the humans, right?
Yep. Punished on a mountain.
Yeah, that's the story. I think Alexander the Great tells a story when he was in the Caucasus. He says he heard Prometheus screams.
No way. That's interesting. There's another one. right? So he gets caught. That it's kind of blurry, but you can see him bringing fire down to man, and then he gets punished, of course. So the symbolism's there, even if the story is kind of doing its own thing.
Did you ever notice the bird eats his liver, right?
Yeah.
And that is exactly the same location where on pictures of Jesus, the Roman soldier pokes the spear into him.
Right there, we're in the side. Yeah. Very interesting. Prometheus, Wikipedia. This is 550 BCE, dude. That's really old. Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, do you want to talk about the Persian stuff for a while?
Yeah, we can. I think that's a dead giveaway that how the biblical text really, especially by the New Testament, picks up this idea of hell for punishment after you die kind of stuff. So I could just bring up some of that. I've got my material here. Let me get into why the devil smells like sulfur. This one. It's talking about the Zoroastrian pits, fire pits, to the Christian lake of fire, to the Quran's boiling torments. I really want to put this.
Here's your lake of fire,
right? Looking for my Persian section here. Canaanite god on a volcanic mountain. I was thinking about getting into all that, which is in Adam and Eve and the devil, but I want to really give it some more thought before I dive into trying to make any relationship between the Ugaritic tell about this god Horon, this underworld deity who gets deposed from a mountain, and then this poisonous fog envelops the world and turns the tree of life into a tree of death. And then Adamu, the hero of the god, comes down, Adam, and he gets himself killed, and him and his wife become mortal, and then now they can die, and they end up dying eventually. I really want to save some of that for some thinking. I want to chew on that before we actually get into Persian. I do want to get into a video that I did before. Oh, we got a super chat. Hold on. I want to get into Othtar just briefly, because I think before we get into Persian, I think it's important we understand this god Othtar as it relates to Isaiah 14. Wade Rogers, you are awesome. Literally amazing. Thank you so much for the super chat and being a member of the channel. The Santorini volcano erupted 1600 BCE. Exodus 13:21. The Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud and by night in a pillar of fire. So you could say maybe this not too distant, volcano keeps bringing back the memory of some earlier volcano. Like I'm saying, there is conversation happening all over now. And you wonder, is it that? Is it the volcano of the 2500 BCE? Is it the 6500 BCE one here in the Caucasus Mountains? I think that one that you're describing, especially with the Fertile Crescent, where our ancestors, would have clearly been like spreading a lot of these myths and stories, makes better sense as like a root or a foundational example where this really becomes a popular idea. And so if the Santorini explosion, that volcanic eruption happens, maybe some memory of people having this story in their own culture over here in the Aegean and also in the biblical area reflects in the Bible. I tend to think the biblical text, especially during Babylon and Persian period, they had enough, textual tradition from the Hittite, from the Babylonian, all this Mesopotamian stuff to work with. I imagine they were coming across this material and then they constructed their own stories aware of that tradition,
Well, so the Exodus story I think, lends itself to all sorts of interpretations. Like it could be this, it could be that, right? It's
right.
I've heard so many hypotheses, like, hey, maybe there was a tsunami, and so the Red Sea actually did retreat for a while, and stuff like that. But I mean, I think the most probable thing that would be really close to the Bible would be if people in Karnak, right, where the Israel stele was found, maybe some people were there and saw the eruption of Arad Rahat across the Red Sea, right, and then they said, "Oh, there's that's our God, right? There's smoke going up and fire. That's our God. We need to go there."
Huh. Yeah, I don't know. I do think
but that's really a stretch. That's like the most generous interpretation I have for that story.
I know I'm not running.
Honestly, I think Exodus is largely based on Enuma Elish.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think there's something there? All right.
Yeah, because in Enuma Elish, Marduk splits a sea goddess, and Moses splits the sea itself, right? And then they both get a tablet, right? And Moses gets it on a mountain. Marduk gets the tablet is created by a mountain goddess. So and they both their faces shine afterwards, and some gods are oppressed in the beginning, and the battle has some structural similarities.
Interesting.
There's a lot of similarities, I think, between Enuma Elish and Exodus.
I got to look into that. I haven't checked that out. I have seen overlap with Gilgamesh and Moses's leaving of Egypt, the 40-day traversing the desert, and there's some overlap between that kind of wandering and trying to find and discover and leaving the place you're at. There's some scholarship I've read somewhere, and I'd have to go back and dig it up, where they see a relationship between Gilgamesh's adventures, where Enkidu's dead now, and he's looking for immortality, and what Moses is doing by leaving Egypt and searching. So I would like to look deeper into what the mythologists are saying there. That it piques my curiosity. You know what I mean? Wade, literally, thank you. You are awesome. I also find it interesting that, we have the Hammurabi inscription, right? We have Shamash on the mountain giving Hammurabi the law. And if you look carefully, well, let's pull that up real quick, because I think people will get a kick out of the visuals. We've all seen this. If you've done any, Hammurabi's code, let's just do that.
And when you show Hammurabi's code, notice one thing. You're not showing it yet?
I am getting there. I am actually. Go ahead. Or do you need it in order to show? Because I was going to expand this image.
I would like to have the image on screen for it.
Okay, I'm using AI to enhance this image because sometimes Google doesn't have very good quality. All right, let's just do this.
Well, the thing I want to point out is that the Codex Hammurabi is a pillar made of diorite.
Oh, wow. Okay. Damn.
And remember in the Azak myth, I think that was not part of the stuff that you read, but in the Azak myth, Azak builds himself a throne and ascribes laws.
Huh. So this right here, I wish I could zoom in more, but at the feet of the god on the right, Shamash, the sun god, which his face is going to illuminate, those that under his feet represent mountains. So that he's on the mountain, right? So he's giving these law codes on the mountain. And then, of course, all of this is the law. And it's all on diorite, which is also interesting.
So a god gives Hammurabi laws on a mountain.
Yeah, symbolically representing. Yeah, I know. Where have I heard that? Kind of wonder. And then, of course, this strange rule and measure kind of rod, a measuring rod. You get that idea with like Gilgamesh measuring Uruk and the various like measuring of their kingdoms and measuring of what they've made, what they've built. But this also, in the hands of a god, may likely represent their creative demiurgic aspects, that they're creator gods. They're capable of building and making. which we know that Yahweh also is, but also you can go to Egypt and find demiurgic deities that, build and crafts, kind of like Hephaestus and the Greeks. But anyway, thank you, Wade. You are awesome. I really appreciate the support. It means the world to have guys like you helping out and keeping the lights on here at MythVision. We can use all the help we can get. I really appreciate it. Okay, so we went, but I think that's fascinating. The diorite part. I mean, is it coincidence? I don't know, man. That's pretty damn powerful to me.
Yeah, that also blew my mind when I realized that.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, hold on, man. What's happening? Something's happening here. I guess we could go to Athar real quick. That's important that we're able to do that. So I think I have the Wikipedia of Athar. I brought it up before we started the stream. Bear with. Here it is. Okay. So this is Athar or Atar. It's a deity whose name or role name and even gender varied across ancient Semitic religion, all up and down the coast, down into Arabia. You get this, right? So Atar is identified with the planet Venus, the morning and evening star. Atar is a prominent character in Baal cycle. So think of Ugarit. It has been suggested that Atar, as a masculine Venus god, was syncretized into the depiction of feminine Venus goddess Inanna in her depiction as having a masculine beard. Here is part of a stele depicting a reclining ibex and 3 Arabian oryx, antelope heads. The ibex was one of the most important sacred animals in ancient. So this is related to it, but you kind of wonder, and this is a little conjecture here, if Atar, which is the god behind the Isaiah 14 polemic against the king of Babylon. We should probably read the text, but I'll pull up my script so people can see what we had when I did a video on this. You'll notice horned animals, right? Where did the idea of the horned devil come from? Was it simply an evolution of the thought that once kings believed they were gods? Because if you go in the ancient world and look at any of the art, gods wore horns on their head. They were crowned with horns. And is that, or is this god Atar symbolic of this animal that has horns? And then later on, we have a devil or a Satan that has horns as well, who rules the underworld and whatnot, that evolves into that. And then here is a Moabite deity Kamos, which I imagine has relationship. But I wanted to show people Atar before I ended up pulling up this script that I had produced a while back with Justin from Deconstruction Zone, where we went into Lucifer and Satan and the book of Isaiah, one of the most profound and poetic books in the Old Testament. Let me do this here. Go in a little more. Contains several chapters that have been the subject of intense theological debate. Isaiah 14, often cited in discussions of Satan's origins, is one of these continuous passages, traditionally interpreted by many as a reference to the fall of Satan, known as Lucifer. The passage is frequently used to support the concept of Satan's rebellion and his eventual expulsion from heaven. However, a closer examination of the context, historical background, and linguistic evidence suggests that Isaiah 14 may actually be referring to the ancient god Athar and not Satan. In this documentary, we will explore how Isaiah 14 has been traditionally understood, the historical linguistic reasons why it could be about another mythological figure named Athar, and the implications this has for biblical interpretation for our understanding of the ancient Near Eastern mythology. And so we go through, right? Traditional, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Of course, went with the KJV, make it sound poetic.
Read some text around that. That's
you want me to pull up Isaiah 14?
Yeah.
All right, let's pull it up. Here we go. All right.
Start at 12.
Here we go. You want me to read before that?
No, I would have taken 12.
Start at 12.
15.
12 yeah, how are you fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of dawn? How are you cut to the ground, you who laid the nations low? You said to yourself, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of the assembly on the heights of Zaphon. I will ascend to the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High, but you are brought down to Sheol, to the depths of the pit, which is what we were reading in that earlier.
Dude, that is exactly Olikumi, right?
Right. And that's why I wonder if Athtar, which we were just looking at, if Athtar is related to this Venus, the morning star, which is, Ishtar, Athtar has a masculine form as well, and how that all has roots going back to this older mythology and the Hittite, sources and stuff. Super interesting how we find this in the Bible. And then people go, well, that's the devil, that's Satan. And acting like that this story they're reading is like the original, this is the one, and this is the true one. And it's like, you don't even know like the countless other myths that really parallel and overlap and have significance. But this is a later version. By the way, this passage, just so everyone doesn't think we're straw manning here, Victor, this is about a king of Babylon that they're using this ancient mythic source, this ancient mythic trope, and applying it like a mockery to an actual king.
Yeah, this in the Bible, there's another, not only Nebuchadnezzar, right? There's also a king of Babylon named Nimrod.
Right. Nimrod.
And the volcano is Nemrut. And Nimrod is really close, right? And it's even closer than you think, because in Hebrew, Nimrod is really spelled Nun Mem Resh Dalet, so just NMRD. You could pronounce that Nemrut if you want, right? So
interesting. I wonder if there's any scholars.
And if you take that name, right? I mean, King Nimrod is characterized as a rebellious guy, right? Remember how often we've heard the word rebel today. If you take the name NMRD and plug that into doitinhebrew.com, it tells you that the translation of that is rebel.
That's actually, yeah. So like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord, the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. So this ancient Babylonian king again, which would
like Isaiah another thing. Nimrod's father is Cush, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cush is Ethiopia, right?
Right.
And just today I've watched one of your streams where you struggled with that fact. So why is his father Cush? Just think about it. If his father is from Ethiopia, it just means that Nimrod is black, like diorite.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. So I've heard two different positions on this. Scholars who say there's a Cush in Babylonia and there's a Cush in Ethiopia. And so this, I've heard a lot of people go, well, the Bible's ripping off Egyptian and African history in order to do this. Whereas there are some who say there's a Cush that's actually over in the East. I don't know what the answer is. I know the Bible's a patchwork of various sources, but it is interesting. It is interesting to think about this and go, what's going on here? I don't want to make too much connections without really strong evidence, but it does make me wonder. Actually,
I mean, there is in that, but it's in the book, but it's also in the text.
In this one
by Maxon that they reference, they speak of a local myth that people near today's Mount Nemrut have, and they have this myth where an evil pharaoh Nemrut built a fortress on top of that mountain, explicitly because he thought he was as powerful as God, and it was in defiance of God, but then God just destroyed that fortress on Mount Nemrut. That's basically the story of the Tower of Babel, right?
That's
and it's exactly here. It's exactly the people around this this crater.
Now that's modern folklore from the locals, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a bit of speculation in terms of being certain, but if it does have roots, and the reason why that's not too, I wouldn't take that lightly. I just did an interview yesterday with a scholar that took me into Southern Arabia. Let me show you the map so that we are on the same page here. And he points out that the modern language, they found really ancient, like 500 BCE, ancient scripts down here in Southern Arabia. It's very lush and green here, unlike desert locations up north more. But they found these inscriptions of a language that hasn't been deciphered for like 110 years. And the locals still have the language. In their modern tongue, they can't read the glyphs, but he was able to decipher with the combination of the locals on top of comparing it to other Semitic languages all throughout the world, this region here.
Did you know that's Saba?
What is?
They are the southern Yemen where you just were.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where the kingdom of Saba, or the queen of Sheba in the Bible. Who visits King Solomon? That's where Saba was.
Interesting. I did not know that. I thought she was from Africa. But I mean, look how close Africa and Arabia are. You know what I mean? So either way, yeah, they're all in the same.
Yeah. But another
area.
point where I really think that Tower of Babel is also connected to Mount Nimrod is in the Caucasus. You have lots and lots and lots of different languages, like and really different. So not even similar grammar or stuff, because people lived there for like 50,000 years, and that's just what happens when people inhabit a place so long. They have time to develop different languages, and I think that the Tower of Babel story basically explains that, right?
So that's interesting. I've never thought, maybe the geography of different language groups in a region that don't have connection. It's not like Arabic and Hebrew and Aramaic where you can kind of get a gist. It's like a modern person trying to talk to someone in Portuguese who knows Spanish. You get like 1/3 of what they're saying. You kind of still know a few words, but then some words you're like, I don't understand. In this case, you're saying there's languages that you're speaking gibberish. They do not even understand. And that might come out from this northern region here, northern Mesopotamia. Interesting.
Another such place where you have lots of languages is across from Sheba in Africa. That's where people think the Hebrew language might originate from.
Goodness gracious.
In the Horn of Africa, Ethiopia, that region. It's not important, but I just wanted to mention it.
Yeah, no, this is all fun information. I mean, again, we talked about before we did this stream, like we may have to do a part 2. I mean, this is too much to cover, and that's okay. You know what I mean? That's totally fine. So let me share my script for Athtar before we get to the Persian stuff here, because it's in the same script here. But so the Lucifer who wasn't Satan. All right. Stay with me because I'm about to show you this smoking gun, baby. Let me zoom in here a little bit. Give you more. Okay. We've just looked at Horon, the rebel god cast from a volcanic mountain, which is something I'm going to look further into. I didn't want to get into what these scholars, Maro C.A. Corpel and Johannes C. de Moor. By the way, one of these scholars is dead. I emailed the one that's still alive. It's so unfortunate. I sometimes I miss the boat on an opportunity to speak to some of these brilliant minds, and life just has a way of taking them, huh? So we've just looked at Horon, the rebel god cast from a volcanic mountain, the Canaanite prototype of the devil. But the same Ugaritic tablets from Rosh Shamra give us another figure who completes the picture in a way that should be devastating to the traditional Christian narrative about Satan and hell. His name is Athtar, and his story is the direct source behind the single most famous Satan passage in the entire Bible. I'm talking about Isaiah 14:12. You know this verse even if you don't think you do. In the King James Version, it reads, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations?" This is the verse that gave us the name Lucifer. This is the verse that for centuries, Christians have pointed to as the biblical account of Satan's rebellion and fall from heaven. This verse is foundational to the entire architecture of hell as Christians understand it. Satan rebelled, was cast out, and hell is where he ended up. It's the backstory for the cosmic villain, the rebel, as you like to, Victor always likes to bring up, and he's right about. But here's the problem. It's not about Satan. It never was. Old Testament scholars have largely rejected the Satan interpretation. And once you see what it's actually about, the entire fall of Lucifer mythology collapses, and with it, a major pillar of the Christian hell narrative. What Isaiah 14 actually says. First, let's actually read the passage in context because Christians almost never do that with this text. Isaiah 14 is explicitly, unmistakably a taunt against the king of Babylon. Verses 3-5 spell it out. When the Lord has given you rest from your pain and turmoil and the hard service with which you were made to serve, you will take up this taunt against the king of Babylon, how the oppressor has ceased. Oppressor, rebel, whatever you want to say. All right. How his insolence has ceased. The Lord has broken the staff of the wicked, the scepter of rulers. This is a song of mockery directed at a human king. The text tells you that. It's not subtle. It's not hidden. It says king of Babylon in plain language. But then in verses 12-15, the prophet reaches for a mythological comparison to drive the insult home. He compares the fallen king to a figure his audience would recognize. Now, here we go. How are you fallen from heaven, O morning star, son of dawn? How are you cut to the ground, you who laid the nations low? You said in your heart, I will ascend to heaven. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mount of assembly on the heights of Zephon. I will ascend to the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High, but you are brought down to the Sheol, to the depths of the pit. Let's pull this apart. Let's go down here to just skip a little. Well, I'll read it. We've got time. It's okay. Now let's pull apart the identifying markers in this passage. The figure is called the morning star, the son of dawn, or son of dawn, son of the dawn. He wants to ascend the divine throne. He wants to sit on Mount Zephon, the mountain of the divine assembly. He wants to be like the Most High, which in the Hebrew is El Elyon. And he is cast down to Sheol, the underworld. The Hebrew word translated Lucifer in the King James is Hallel, which simply means shining one or light bearer. Lucifer is nothing more than the Latin translation of that Hebrew word. It is not a name. It is not the name of Satan. People only associate this Latin term with Satan because they have been conditioned to by centuries of church tradition. It is not in the text. It is an invention. So if this isn't about Satan, who is it about? That is where Ugarit changes everything. Othtar, the god behind Lucifer. Before the discovery of the ancient city of Ugarit in 1928, this mythological background was largely lost to history. But in the ruins of Ras Shamra, archaeologists found the Baal cycle, one of the most important mythological texts ever discovered. And in the Baal cycle, we meet the god Othtar. Othtar was an ancient deity from the Ugaritic and Phoenician pantheons, a god associated with the planet Venus, the morning star. In ancient Near Eastern religion, Venus was one of the most prominent celestial bodies visible in the morning dawn before dawn, and it was personified as a deity across multiple cultures. The Hebrew word Hallel in Isaiah 14, shining one or morning star, corresponds directly to the role of Othtar as the Venus deity. Here is the myth. The Baal cycle, when Bel, the chief storm god, dies and descends to the underworld, the gods need someone to take his throne on Mount Zephon. Othtar, the morning star, is chosen as a candidate. He ascends the mountain, climbs onto Baal's throne, but he's too small. His feet don't reach the footstool. His head doesn't touch the headrest. He cannot fill the seat of the high god. The text says, then Othtar the awesome climbed Mount Zephon, ascended the throne of Baal the Almighty, but his feet did not reach the footstool. His head did not touch the headdress. Then Othtar the awesome spoke, I cannot serve as king. I cannot dwell on the heights of Zephon. So Othtar the awesome descended, stepped down from the throne of Baal the Almighty. He became king of the underworld, lord of the river of the dead. Let me lay the parallels out, because once you see them, you can't unsee them. Isaiah 14, the figure is called the morning star. Othtar, the god associated with Venus, the morning star. Isaiah 14, the figure is son of the dawn. Othtar, Venus, appears in the morning during dawn. Isaiah 14, I should just make a parallel chart for this part of the video when I go to write it or make it. The figure wants to ascend to the divine throne. Othtar, he climbs to Baal's throne. Isaiah 14, the figure wants to sit on Mount Zaphon. Othtar, he sits on literally the same mountain, Mount Zaphon. It's the identical mountain we find in the Bible. Isaiah 14, and this is way older. We're talking 13th, century, 1200s, 1300s BCE, this myth, whereas the Bible's is what? At best 600, 500 BCE, 600. I mean, it's in that ballpark, right? The figure wants to be like the Most High, El Elyon. Othtar, he wants to be like the Most High. Isaiah 14, the figure is brought down to Sheol. Othtar, he descends and becomes the king of the underworld. Every single identifying marker in Isaiah 14 matches the myth of Othtar. 7 for 7. The correspondence is virtually perfect. The prophet Isaiah is not describing the fall of Satan. He's comparing the king of Babylon to Othtar, using a well-known mythological story to deliver a devastating taunt. And this is it. You thought you could be like the high god. You're Othtar. You're one of those people whose feet didn't reach the footstool. You didn't belong on the throne. It's a mockery. So anyway, I could go on and on about Othtar, and there's cool stuff about Epic of Gilgamesh and the Cedar Forest. Mount Zaphon is mentioned in this. There's so much cool stuff that I'm going to put together here. I got to really get our members like the hook up on my scripts and just start giving them this, like, if you're a member, have access to all these PDFs so that you have ammunition whenever you engage online or just want to learn it. So we dealt with Othtar. I had to do it. Sorry it took so much time. But now we could technically do the Persian stuff. I don't know how deep we want to get into that. I know Ezekiel 28 gets brought up too. That's another one, but for Satan. But anyway,
I'm not sure what that is.
The Ezekiel 28 passage. Here, I'll pull it up
sure.
for you. Yeah. See, it's usually sounding like it's talking about the Garden of Eden. There's precious stones. All of that.
In this book, they also argue that Mount Nemrut could be a Garden of Eden, and that when God throws them out, he puts a cherubim with a flaming sword there to protect the garden, right? And I don't know, Blade, another translation of Sigbu.
Wow. Huh. Something to think about. Again, this is another proclamation against a king, but it seems to have mythological roots, and it's similar to what we find in Isaiah 14. And this is the word of the Lord came to me. Mortals, say to the prince of Tyre, thus says the Lord God, because your heart is proud and you have said, I am a god. I sit in the seat of the gods in the heart of the seas. Yet you are but a mortal and not God, though you compare your mind with the mind of God. You are indeed wiser than Daniel. No secret is hidden from you, but your wisdom and your understanding. You have amassed wealth for yourself. You have gathered gold and silver into your treasuries. By your great wisdom and trade, you have increased your wealth. Your heart has become proud in your wealth. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, because you compare your mind with the mind of God, therefore I will bring strangers against you, the most terrible of the nations. They shall draw their swords against the beauty of your wisdom, defile your splendor. They shall thrust you down to the pit. You shall die a violent death in the heart of the seas. Will you still say, I am a god, in the presence of those who kill you, though you are but a mortal and not God, in the hands of those who pierce you? You should die the death of the uncircumcised by the hands of foreigners, for I have spoken, says the Lord. Then he goes on. Moreover, the word of the Lord came to me. Mortal, raise a lamentation over the king of Tyre and say to him, thus says the Lord God, you were the signet of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering. Cornelian, chrysolite, moonstone, beryl, onyx, jasper, sapphire, turquoise, and emerald. And worked in gold were your settings and your engravings. On the day that you were created, they were prepared. You were a cherub. Well, no human is a cherub. Do you see what I'm saying? So this is mythological, that he's bringing in the mythology as an attack against the king of Tyre. I placed you on the holy mountain of God. You walked among the stones of fire.
Oh.
Yeah.
Holy
You were
mountain of
blamed.
God. We've seen the mountain of the assembly already, right? And that's another topic that I want to talk about later.
Yeah.
Like what's the mountain of the assembly?
Exactly.
Apparently, a mountain with stones of fire.
Something's going on, bro. You were blameless in your ways from the day that you were created until iniquity was found in you. In the abundance of your trade, you were filled with violence and you sinned. So I cast you as a profane thing from the mountain of God, and I drove you out, O guardian cherub, from among the stones of fire. Your heart was proud because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendor. I cast you to the ground. I exposed you before kings to feast their eyes on you by the multitude of your iniquities. Anyway, it goes on and on. I'm not going to go on and on, but you see. And then I am against you, O Sidon. So now he's talking about Sidon. But like, notice the mythology that they constantly invoke whenever they are making polemic against actual people. They go to these older myths and then they use them as ways of jabbing at the human kings.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So I think I don't want to get too lost because we're already 2 hours in, right? And I want to, you're our first time guest here, and we could get into the Persian stuff. I think it might be worth just saying in 539, I do have the script here. I will share the screen just so people can see it. And then I want to allow you some time to really, explain what you had ready. And then if you feel like, hey, we should do a part 2 and continue, we will. But in 539 BC, the Persian king Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon and allowed the Jewish exiles to return home. The Persians ruled the region for about 2 centuries, and during that time, the Israelites were exposed to Persian religion, specifically Zoroastrianism. And Zoroastrianism had something the Israelites didn't: a fully developed theology of post-mortem judgment, heaven, and hell. Zoroastrianism, founded on the teachings attributed to the prophet Zarathustra, Zoroaster in Greek, is arguably the most influential religion most people have never heard of. And its influence on Judaism, Christianity, and Islam is enormous. Here's what the Zoroastrians believed based on our best reading of their primary text. In the Gathas, the oldest portion of the Avesta, which you've read and told me you fall asleep half the time trying to read it because some of it's boring. It says the Zoroastrian scriptures, likely dating to somewhere between 1500 and 1000 BCE, Zarathustra describes a cosmic battle between Ahura Mazda, the wise lord, the force of truth and order, and Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit, the force of lies and chaos. This dualism, a cosmic struggle between good and evil, was radical for its time. In Yasna 32-4 of the Gathas, Zarathustra teaches that at the beginning there were 2 spirits, the better and the bad, and that humans must choose between them. Those who follow truth, Asha, will be rewarded. Those who follow the lie, Druj, will face consequences. But it's in the later Avestan text, particularly the Hadok Nask, I'm trying the best I can to pronounce this, and the Arda Viraf Namag, Book of Arda Viraf, where we get the fully developed picture of post-mortem judgment. According to these texts, after death, the soul lingers near the body for 3 days. On the 4th dawn, the soul approaches the Chinvat bridge, the bridge of the separator. For the righteous soul, the bridge is wide and easy to cross. I think I've heard this before. The path is broad and wide, but narrow, and very few find their way through the path, Jesus says. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm parallelomanian there, but either way. And a beautiful maiden, the personification of the soul's own good deeds, appears to greet them and escort them to paradise. For the wicked soul, the bridge narrows to a razor edge. A hideous old hag, the personification of their evil deeds, appears, and the soul falls from the bridge into the abyss of hell. The Arda, Viraf Namag, though compiled in its final form in the Sasanian period, 3rd to 7th century CE, preserves traditions that scholars believe are much older. In it, a righteous priest named Viraf is given a guided tour of heaven and hell. Yes, just like Dante's Inferno over 1,000 years later. Viraf describes punishments in hell that are specific to the sins committed. Liars have their tongues torn out. Adulterers are impaled. Those who gave false measure have their bodies stretched. The wicked eat filth. are gnawed by vermin and exist in darkness and stench. You get this in the Gospel of Peter too. So this isn't exclusive to the Zoroastrians, but by that time, Jews had already been influenced, Christians now by Jews. And of course, the Greeks are already influenced with hell in the afterlife. So I don't think I need to keep going. There's so much more we could say, but what do you think?
I see. I see really close connections between Zoroastrianism and the stories of heaven and hell we have today. Especially, I mean, I don't even think that an idea of a soul existed for that long, right? So, and the Persians really had this idea of the purity of a soul, right? And at the end, there will be a flow of lava, I think, and you have to walk through it, and the cleaner you are, the less it will hurt, right? So if you've done nothing but good in your life, then you can just walk through it, and if you're a really bad person, then it will hurt like hell.
And I heard it burns the parts of you that are evil. You know what I mean?
But that's really just a metallurgic metaphor, right? That's how you clean metals. Right?
Yeah, so that's literally what the Bible's God kind of describes. But for this life, people are kind of purified through fire, and but then you get the wheat and the chaff, and you get these interesting allusions to this idea that you're talking about. And do they all come back from this volcano? Like this idea, and then of course metallurgy too. I mean, is there a combination? I imagine of ideas. Someone actually said in the chat, they're right about this. Enoch got a tour from Uriel before this too. And one Enoch, one of the 5 books in there, and I think it's in the Similitudes of Enoch, the 3rd book. There is a tour. It may be in the 1st book of the Watchers, but I think it's in the Similitudes. But either one, it's either the 1st or the 3rd book in one Enoch. There is a tour of this jagged mountainous region where those angels that defiled human women, taught them sorcery, taught them makeup and war and all these things that, saw the women that we see in the sons of God in Genesis 6. They are now cast into this, like, the same thing that the Titans do in this dark abyss, rocky underworld. And that myth, this is something scholars have pointed out about Enoch's influence from both Babylonian, likely Persian, Babylonian, and Greek sources from Tartarus. So I'm going to cover all this stuff in a video. I have to. But you've inspired me, Victor. And I was like, man, this volcano it's got me thinking.
Yeah, it's really insane where you find that, right? So, you already mentioned that we probably won't get through everything, but let me...
I'm yours. I'm going to stop
rush through a few things. So you recently had a video about Hinduism where you had Shiva, right? And Shiva appeared in form of a fire column.
Which video was this? Because I've talked about Shiva in a couple different videos.
I would have the primary source if you want to. But I think, but what I really find interesting is that Shiva's penis is also worshipped in a way. So his lingam is what it's called, and you have sculptures
of Shiva's penis.
Yeah, there was a.
Now, what is that? What is it symbolizing, as far as you understand?
Creational power. I mean, Shiva created the world, right? By using the word Om, right? The Om, right?
Yeah.
And it says actually that that this word Om was revealed when Shiva appeared in this fire column way. So maybe the word that created the world, Om, is really just an imitation of a volcanic eruption. Like, oh, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I look for
just
the most
throwing
concrete.
some stuff out there.
Yeah. I get it. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's speculation. It could be.
Yeah.
But I like the concrete stuff. Again, just so you know, I'm going to preserve any of the Greek stuff from my end. I want to let you, anything you want to say about hell, about the origins of hell, until the end, I'll have something to say. So I want to let you have a chance to just share and talk about what you want to talk about.
Okay. I'll send you another link.
Okay.
That's Shiva's penis. And I find that interesting because Dionysus is also worshipped with his penis imagery, right? In the procession, they carry a huge Dionysus penis and so. And
it's like fertility, it feels like too, though.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, but that would be so common. The idea of like this kind of material is everywhere. I mean, everyone knows that fertility comes from female, male,
Yeah, sure.
procreating.
But look at that figure there.
Oh, this one?
Yeah, it's black and cylindrical in a way.
Yeah. So what does this have to do with hell, or at least the ideas you're talking about?
Not necessarily anything, but
yeah,
that's one thing I wanted to bring up because I think that's a pretty good sign of the same story also appearing in Hinduism.
Okay. So in this story, which I have not read this story, it seems to be like a mountain, the cosmic kind of mountain stuff going on in it. You're saying?
Not sure if it's on a mountain, but it's the column is giant. Like one god, I think it's Brahma, turns into a swan and tries to fly to the top of it, but he has to give up because it's just too high, so he cannot reach it.
Huh. Yeah, I haven't actually dug deep into that at all. Egyptian god.
Yeah, I'm actually not very prepared for Persian stuff because I thought you would have somebody for that.
Well, I read a little bit there. I didn't want to go too deep into other than to say it seems apparent. I mean, John Collins, who's also like deeply brilliant on Old Testament stuff in Second Temple Judaism, he has been on record. Many other Hebrew Bible scholars point out the Persian influence on Jewish religion, and that idea goes all the way down. There's even there have been scholars who've argued that the name Pharisees etymologically matched with Parsees, the Parsees, which is actually a Persian priestly cult practice. So like the Pharisees themselves, who believe in an afterlife, believe in the resurrection, the final resurrection, right? They believe in like similar things to what Jesus was teaching, but they're not Sadducees, like the classic priests who don't believe in an afterlife. They just think once you die, you go to Sheol. There's no hell or punishment or anything. The Pharisees did, and there are scholars who think the name Pharisee may actually stem out of the Persian Parsees. And I don't know off the top of my head that argument in depth, and I'm not a linguist, but there are scholars who have suggested that, and there are scholars, of course, who've pretty much, I think it's almost unanimous, if not every scholar I know that's serious in Old Testament material would highlight, or historically, that the Jews clearly are inspired and influenced by Zoroastrian worship, and their ideas of the afterlife start to come in from this period into the Jewish mind. So there's already Sheol and shades of an afterlife, but it's not everyone goes to the same place, not a compartmentalizing and a judgment for good and evil. And then dualism starts to enter the scene. Like we could read in Isaiah, it says, I create light, I create darkness, I create good, I create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. But once you get to this dualistic information that comes in, Good's fighting against evil. Evil's fighting against good. God is no longer the one who creates evil. There is a being that does all of that. And so that struggle, that dualistic idea starts to make its way into Christian thought. And the devil or Satan isn't just God's pit bull doing what God tells him to do. He's like kind of a free agent to fight against God in a way. And that likely comes from that dualism, is what many of the scholars I've talked to think. Yeah. Anyway.
I just had a thought.
What?
I just had a thought and now it's gone.
It's the devil trying to steal your ideas.
Yeah, I remember. In the Bible, I think in the book of Maccabees, it starts to have an idea of good people having a better afterlife, where the good people go to the yard of God, like the what's the English word?
Garden, or like a, you said the yard.
Yeah, the courtyard of God.
Okay.
The good people will live in the courtyard of God.
Gotcha.
The afterlife. Yeah. But the books of Maccabees are not in all canons, right?
Yeah, and they seem to be written a little later. Like we see this in Daniel too, right? So you start getting it in later Jewish text within the Old Testament. The ideas that we find in Enoch, 1 Enoch, which is in the Qumran material, Dead Sea Scrolls. There's this idea of punishing, eternality, judgment, all of that stuff that really starts to play a significant role. You know what I mean? It's all over the place. Billy asked, do I have an email? Yes, Derek@mythvisionpodcast.com or mythvisionpodcast@gmail.com. Simple as that. Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the Greek stuff. Just even briefly. I didn't know, you said you had something prepared on that. Did you bring anything when it came to the Greek material, or not really?
Yeah, I would have something by Apollodorus or from Hesiod's Theogony.
Okay. Did you want to read that? Want me to pull the source up?
Yeah, let me give you the link.
Okay. I figure once we get to that, we could close out with just letting people know a natural disaster created the thing you stay up late at night worried about. Stop worrying about that thing. Stop concerning yourself with whether or not you're going to go to hell and God's going to punish you, because all this stuff came from natural. Yeah, all this came from natural disasters. Okay.
And in there we can have section 163.
Okay. Section 163. Here we are. All right. This is Hesiod? Or
that's
Apollodorus?
Apollodorus.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me zoom in, because this site has all sorts of ads on it. You know what I mean?
There's Prometheus, by the way.
What
171. You just scrolled by Prometheus 171.
Interesting. Can we get rid of this dumb ad at the bottom here? No, we can't. Okay. Oh, well. When the gods had overcome the giants, Earth, still more enraged, had intercourse with Tartarus and brought forth Typhon and Cilicia, a hybrid between man and beast. In size and strength, he surpassed all the offspring of Earth. As far as the thighs, he was of human shape and of such prodigious bulk that he topped all the mountains, and his head often brushed the stars. One of his hands reached out to the west and the other to the east, and from them projected 100 dragons' heads. From the thighs downward, he had huge coils of vipers, which when drawn out, reached to his very head and emitted a loud hissing. His body was all winged, unkempt hair, streamed on the wind from his head and cheeks, and fire flashed from his eyes. Such as so great was Typhon when hurling kindled rocks he made for the very heaven with hissing and shouts, spouting a great jet of fire from his mouth. But when the gods saw him rushing at heaven, they made for Egypt in flight, and being pursued, they changed their forms into those of animals. However, that would explain why there's like animal, human, or animal mixture figures in Egypt, maybe, if this is the point. However, Zeus pelted Typhon at a distance with thunderbolts, and at a close quarters struck him down with an adamantine sickle. And as he fled, pursued him closely as far as Mount Caucasus. I imagine that's the mountain, right? Same one that.
No, that's
that's
in Syria.
So Mount Caucasus, which overhangs Syria. Okay.
Okay, there.
Yeah, I should have kept reading. They're seeing the monster sore wounded. He grappled with him, but Typhon twined about him and gripped him in his coils. I think he means his genitals, probably. I don't know. And wrestling the sickle from him, severed the sinews of his hands and feet, and lifting him on his shoulders, carried him through the sea to Cilicia, and deposited him on arrival in the Corycian cave. Likewise, he put away the sinews there also, hidden in a bearskin, and he set to guard them the she-dragon, Delphine, who was a half-bestial maiden. But Hermes and Agapan stole the sinews and fitted them unabsorbed to Zeus. And having recovered his strength, Zeus suddenly from heaven, riding in a chariot of a winged horses, pelted Typhon with thunderbolts and pursued him to the mountain called Nisa, where the fates beguiled the fugitive. For he tasted the ephemeral fruits in the persuasion that he would be strengthened thereby. So being again pursued, he came to Thrace, and in fighting at Mount Haemus, he heaved whole mountains. But when these recoiled on him through the force of the thunderbolt, a stream of blood gushed out on the mountain, and they say that from that circumstance, the mountain was called Haemus. And when he started to flee through the Cilician Sea, Zeus cast Mount Etna in Sicily upon him. That is a huge mountain from which down to this day they say that blasts of fire issue from the thunderbolts that were thrown. So much for that subject. Mountains all over the place over here, freaking being
mountains,
thrown around.
Fire, a giant, right?
Yeah. Huh.
And he now lives under a volcano and causes the eruptions there.
Yeah. Even the blood, like he says, a stream of blood gushed out on the mountain. I imagine, like, what color is lava if it's not reddish orange, right?
Yeah.
And you could see potentially lava, if you wanted to read it this way, flowing down the sides of the mountain as if it's bleeding. The mountain's bleeding,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. If you're taking this as a volcanic eruption and it's myth depicting it, it could make sense. Wow.
Yeah, I think this is really the Greek version of Ulikumi. And, this being Typhon, Manetho says that Typhon is the same god as Seth from Egyptian mythology. Remember?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so much going on. In fact, I didn't even see this. Wade Rogers sent a super chat. Again, Wade, forgive me. I do not mean to leave anybody hanging when you super chat. I apologize. I'm seeing this because I was reading that page. Egypt's Book of the Dead has a lake of fire in Duat, underworld, where the wicked are destroyed forever. Even drawings of it on papyri. So let me pull up the Book of the Dead, Egyptian Book of the Dead, Lake of Fire. And I imagine Karakuni would think there's something to this in terms of, like, look at this one, right? That's on Facebook, of course, trying to show you all of them. Here is Lake of Fire. Is a concept that appears in both the ancient Egyptian and Christian religions. In ancient Egypt, it appears as an obstacle on the journey through the underworld, which can destroy or refresh the deceased. In Christianity, it is a concept of after-death punishment of the wicked. The phrase is used in 5 verses of the book of Revelation. In the biblical context, the concept seems similar to the Jewish Gehenna. The image of a lake of fire was taken up by the early Christian Hippolytus of Rome in about the year 230 and has continued to be used by modern Christians. You know what? I'm going to pull my call a friend. We're on the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire show right now, and Wade Rogers just hooked us up with a super chat. The least I could do is try to give a call to an Egyptologist right now while we're on the phone. All right, give me 1 second. I want to see if Kara Cooney would be so kind as to answer. Bear with me. And then get her answers on this or her thoughts. Because this is cool. Just looking at this. Wouldn't it be awesome? She wasn't able to answer. Okay. She said something to me about the lake of fire and how it was understood in ancient Egypt versus Christian mythology of the lake of fire. But even here, you could see how it's already kind of saying that the concept is a bit different from the later torturing humans kind of idea we find in the book of Revelation, where it's more purifying, it seems. I don't know. It can destroy or refresh the deceased. So there's something going on there. And I bring up the Egyptian material in my script, but I wanted to find this image where you said that they have drawings on the papyri, and it may just be this one, but that's kind of weird. You got like 4 monkeys and then like a little lake with like symbolism there. Papyri. Let me see. That's probably the lake there, and the above this crocodile underworld looking figure, I would imagine. They talk about the Nile like traversing this river in the afterlife, right? And then there is this lake. Like what? Let's see. It says the lake of fire. So this is recumbent ambit by the lake of fire with the feather of Mot. So that we know that the feather of Mot they weigh your heart with. Book of the Dead of the royal scribe Nephked, 1400, 1350 BCE. The lake of fire in ancient Egyptian belief is a compelling and multifaceted concept primarily depicted in funerary texts such as the Book of the Dead. This lake, known in Egyptian as the Lake of Flames, served as both a perilous obstacle and a source of purification for the deceased navigating the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. So it kind of sounds like the Chinvat Bridge, so to speak, of the Persians somewhat. The earliest references to fiery lakes appear in the coffin text and are further elaborated in the Book of the Dead, notably in Spell 126. In these texts, the lake of fire is portrayed as a rectangular body of water surrounded by flames and guarded by 4 baboons. These baboons, often associated with Thoth, the god of wisdom and writing, could either protect and rejuvenate the righteous or annihilate the wicked who failed to recite the correct spells or lacked moral purity. In the papyrus of Ani, dating to the 19th dynasty, 4 baboons are shown seated at the corners of the lake, facing outward. Their posture suggests vigilance, serving as guardians who prevent the unworthy from passing. These baboons are not merely symbolic. They embody the protective and punitive aspects of the afterlife journey. The concept of the lake of fire bears a striking resemblance to the notions of hell or purgatory in Abrahamic religions. In Christianity, the lake of fire is mentioned in the book of Revelation as a place of eternal punishment for the wicked. Similarly, in ancient Egyptian belief, those who failed the judgment of the heart could be cast into the lake of fire, leading to their annihilation. However, unlike the eternal conscious torment or eternal torment described in some Christian interpretations, the Egyptian lake of fire could also serve as a purifying force for the righteous. It shares the fire imagery, and the theme of moral trial and punishment, but unlike the Christian and Jewish notion of purgatory, Gehenna, where the soul of the deceased would spend a painful time being cleansed of sin, the lake of fire did not always provide a guaranteed path to salvation, and its stakes were permanent. Amhet. What's this? Anubis shrine from the tomb of Tutankhamun and Virgil feeding Cerberus in the third circle. Illustration from the Divine Comedy. Yeah, Cerberus being a dog kind of beast, and then Anubis being kind of this hybrid creature, is a guardian of the underworld, just like Cerberus is a guardian to the underworld. That looks like human souls in the lake of fire, right? Book of the Dead of Bakhemut. So around 1,000 years BC, reading Egyptian art, a hieroglyphic guide to the ancient Egyptian painting and sculpture. This is some book I imagine this image is from. That's fascinating. The Souls of Purgatory. Anyway, that was a good website I randomly came across, but it was egyptmuseum.com. So, interesting, Wade. Thank you so much for bringing that up. I didn't really think too heavily about Egypt's Lake of Fire and how did that influence Jewish thought. It may have just influenced Persian ideas. Maybe, I don't know what direction the flow was, which direction the ideas came from, but Jews being in Persia, we do find in late Second Temple Judaism, the influence pretty obvious that their materials there. But mind you, we do have Jews in Elephantine, Egypt, right? So you have like this very important sect of Jews that are down here in Egypt. Did they pick up some of these ideas during that Persian period from Egypt as well? Because Persia rules all that land, including down there in Egypt, by the 5th century BCE, right? So pre-Hellenistic period. I don't know. Sounds interesting. Thank you, Wade. Thank you. Anything you want to add or address, Victor, before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, we were already at Egyptian mythology, right, with Seth. And Seth is the main god of the Hyksos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we assume the Hyksos to be ancestors of the Hebrews, then who is God?
Right, right. Are the traditions that we get later that say there's a relationship between the Semitic Hyksos people and those who would identify themselves as not Canaanites, but they really are, Israel, right? People from that land. Are they really just worshiping the same God? And later people do think that Yahweh behaves like Seth would, pretty rough, harsh, not too nice God,
Yeah, and the donkey god, right? So
Right. So what's up? What's going on, Victor? What's going on, man?
That's my proposition to you, that this mountain here is God.
Interesting. So the mountain, let's get the map back up. If we're going to do this right, we got to do this right. Okay. We get this. Let's go back to this one because it's pinned. We're here in the world, right? Very, very long ago, volcano erupted and people were living right here in this region. And you can see it from Google Maps how big this crater is. That's all a volcano. That entire thing, correct?
Yeah.
That's big. This volcano, just the stories that came from that, from the Hittite region, which we saw right here, right? The same region, the Hittite Hurrian people, they spread this stuff all over, and we end up with a hell eventually where people believe you're going to go and burn because there's a god who's in the underworld that's torturing people and whatnot. Or the variations of the myth, variations of how that myth plays out. But you could say this is the source or a likely source for that story.
Yeah, again, the similarity to Ulikumi, I think, is undeniable. And I really think you find really, the same story everywhere. I mean, just think about, I mean, the Song of Ulikumi is the oldest instance of the Chaos Kampf that we have, right? And everyone has a Chaos Kampf story, right? So
Yeah.
so Baal against Yam is a Chaos Kampf. I think Ra against Apophis is a Chaos Kampf. Marduk against Tiamat. You have. I'm getting tired.
Yeah, Zeus against
you have some.
Theranos. Yeah.
Yeah, right, and even other things like demythologized stuff. Even King Arthur is somewhat derived from that, and
Dragons. Yeah.
Siegfried the Dragon Slayer from German mythology, whose story is then incorporated into Django Unchained, right? We have that.
Yeah.
We have the story of Ulikumi basically in a Tarantino movie, right?
It's wild.
So I love that, right? So
yeah. Well, I want to hear what everyone else thinks, about what we
Yeah.
talked about today. I really do wish, sharing my screen again, that this book was accessible in English. It's really unfortunate. And it's also not even available in German on Amazon right now. So it'd be really cool to get this,
yeah, I really had to go to length to get it, right? So it
I wonder
was really
if
madness.
I might try to email these guys and say, hey, can I get a copy? I don't know. Get a copy, an e-copy. Then at least I could run it through an AI system to get it translated. And then, it'd be cool to get some of this insight out there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they are interested. I mean, this is a big channel. If this channel discusses this book, that might be a good idea for them to make it accessible for people to buy.
That would be cool.
Like they've got a lot of advertisements today here.
Yeah, this is free advertisement. You know what I mean? But they can't buy it. That sucks.
Yeah.
Out of print. So that doesn't help. But it'd be really cool to just see what their study says and get people the opportunity to study it and to understand these ideas. Listen, I'm going to say it this way. Like the whole reason I even wanted to do this stream, I have a friend who reaches out to me once, I'd say every 3 to 6 months on Facebook. And they always come back with the same trauma. They have real religious trauma. They are terrified that they think that demons might be real. There might be real like entities and stuff. And they think there might be real hell. And they're worried that Christianity might be true. That's what they tell me all the time. Like they're worried. I can't help it. I worry that maybe what if Christianity is true? And if it's true, then I might can go to hell. And then so they like, and I'm like, my gosh, my friend, like I have to try to be patient because it's been years, and I try to give them advice to go speak to a professional, talk to someone who can help you with this. I clearly can't. I think educating oneself and knowing more about it really gets away the boogeyman, and it's not scary because you now know it's all human. These are all human made up stories that make, a lot of it makes sense if you think of it as a natural disaster, or if you have other explanations. You're in a dry region. Let's say there's fire that comes from gases out of the earth, and you go, oh, fire's in the earth. It's natural to think down there's fire. Okay. And stories get spun out of the geography of the earth. But he can't let go of the fear. And I just feel like the duty I can do in educating people to realize we're dealing with human storytelling, fam. This is not literal. This is not real. There's no place you're going to that's going to torture you, to burn you. You have to understand this. Like, this is so important as part of the research we're doing. It's fascinating. It's interesting, and you can study it like I am, like an anthropologist would study, or someone would study this as a human, just saying, look at what these old ancient ideas are. The fact that they're alive and they're believed today and causing so many people trauma and harm is unfortunate when we have the internet that has so much material to help you understand where these stories come from and how they developed and evolved and changed over time, that the whole idea the rug should be pulled out from underneath. There shouldn't be any more like, but what if this one late myth story is the one true one? And it's like, they're borrowing from all this earlier material. Like, what do you mean? So
you'll end up here.
Hell is true. Yeah, you'll end up
here.
Hold on, look, make it full screen. Who doesn't want to go to that hell? I mean, I want to go to that hell. What the heck? That's where I want to go, man.
Yeah, bring your swimsuit.
Bring your swimsuit. Didn't you say that they do skiing as well, like on the mountains?
Yes, in winter they have snow there, and you can go skiing there. There's an actual ski resort on that mountain.
They say when hell freezes over.
When hell freezes over, you can ski here.
Well, hell does freeze over, so you might want to stop saying that. Oh goodness, yeah, that's what I think. Kinetic, that's the most pretty crater I ever did see. Exactly. Oh man, that's funny. Look, as a Muslim, I honestly pity the hosts. Look, my friend, I pity anyone who thinks Gehenna is real, anyone who thinks hell is real, anyone who believes in an actual afterlife that's going to torture humans. And you believe a God that would do that, to me, that is something to pity. I really, really do. I wish we didn't have, all of this fear that comes from these stories that, is just passed along. That's the sad part for me, is there's so many people who are good people, who don't mean any bad, are believing things that their parents taught them, that their parents taught them. And it's like, they're trapped in an ideology they don't know how to get out of. So what do you do? Is what it is, man. Anyway, final words from you, my brother. Any final words?
Go to hell, man.
Right? Oh my God. That's so funny. That's funny. All right, look, ladies and gentlemen, go check out the links in the description. Victor Engelman, if you see him in the chat, now you know who he is. And he's a big fan of what we're doing here at MythVision. And I'm a fan of what he's doing. And we're on a journey, still learning, studying, bringing this information to the front. Like this video, please. Share this video, please. Comment down below. Join the Patreon, help support what we're doing. Sign up for one of the courses that my wife, she runs that site, helps keep the lights on here. You can hype this show, I think. There's a way to hype videos now on YouTube. Hype this out there. If you know a friend who also is terrified of hell, thinks it might be real, consider looking into an ancient origin for it and how it evolved. And until next time, thank you, Victor, for your time.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It was really fun.
Let's do it again.
Yeah.
All right. We are
MythVision.
Have a good one, fam.
Son, do you want to know what the truth is? After this, there's no turning back. You take the blue pill and you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland. And I show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth. Nothing more.